I was asked to give an example of what this toxic twin flame energy that I speak of, that I'm healing with my counterpart, actually looks like in the physical world. Now, if you are familiar with what the wounded and feminine and the wounded masculine energy looks like, because we carry both of them within us. So, for example, I carried wounded feminine energy very strongly of codependency, neediness, um, that wound of not being seen, not being heard as a child, not feeling loved or wanted as a child. Not that I wasn't loved or wanted, it was a wound that was there. So this showed up in my twin flame dynamic looking like this. I go to bed, and in my wounded energy, if he did not come to bed when I came to bed or give me any kind of loving interaction, maybe he had a bad day. Maybe he was in his wounds that day. But I have my own wounds. So as I go to bed, I start to get in the mind space, which is a wounded masculine energy that I carried within me. So I'd get in my mind space and I would start to think about things. First clue, there's a problem. You're thinking about it and not feeling. Because I would feel safe and loved and like everything was just fine. But then my mind would tell me that he was talking to other people. He was waiting for me to go to bed so that he could do whatever he was doing with other people, because surely he doesn't love me. I'm not worthy of love. That is a wound. And even though he would come to bed after I would fall asleep, I would wake up the next morning still in wounded energy, still carrying that that mind space of, oh my goodness, did he, was he doing that? Was that what was happening? And I would not outwardly say those things to him, but I would do it in a passive aggressive way. Another wound, another toxic energy. And as I speak about this, I can feel so much heat, because it was a very tumultuous time for the two of us to navigate together the wounds that I carried within me and the wounds that he carries within him. I needed a part 2 on speaking about this toxic twin flame energy that I'm navigating. So, as I was saying in the previous video, I would carry that energy into the next day, and it would be insidious, and it would creep out in all kinds of subtle ways. Now, when it came to him and his toxic energy, because of my toxic masculine or toxic feminine energy that would come to the surface, if I was responding or reacting from that state of being, he would match my energy. He would match that toxic energy with his toxic feminine or masculine energy that he carried within him. Now, that can play out in many different, any relationship, but when it comes to a twin flame dynamic, what is happening is that these individuals, I and his I am presence, are on a journey back to source. And in order to make that journey back to source, he and I have to reflect to each other the toxic things that we carry within us, so that we as individuals can go deep into those wounds as they surface, so that we can sever them, so that we can cut the ties that bind us to this toxic energy. Once we release ourselves from this toxic energy, we are able to hold space for one another. So that is what happened with us. I began to detach myself from my wounds. I started to heal from my wounded energy. And so now I'm able to hold space for him. We talk about the feminine energy holding space for the masculine. That is something that's happening within yourself. Once you balance that within, then in your physical world, you can actually hold space for this toxic mirror that was reflecting your toxic energy back to you. And so now you hold space, loving space, for this counterpart as they navigate that toxic energy within themselves, because you recognize it, because when what as within, so without. So they begin to recognize their toxic traits, their patterns, what they need to work through, and they stop projecting it or reacting from that wounded space, because you are now coming from a healed place, a healed state of being, and it allows them to come forward, if that makes sense.